have the attention of everyone? Today, I have called the meeting for the sole purpose of restoring our operation. We find ourselves in a situation no one expects, a position that forces us to stop our activity because of numerous boundaries and limitations. The use of our previous method is not suitable for the current situation. Providing a new one for the pandemic will be our goal for today. Before we start, I would like you to welcome Professor Clarence from the University of the Philippines. Professor will provide us an overview and knowledge about the virus and restriction we have to observe regarding our plan.
Late December 2019, there is a last of unidentified confirmed case of pneumonia in Wuhan, China, which then identified as a coronavirus. Coronavirus caused a worldwide outbreak as affected many including the transportation sector. The operation of transit was freed since the declaration of enhanced community quarantine because of the virus characteristic. COVID-19 is a unique family of viruses that can be spread between people who are proximity to one another via respiratory droplets produced when an infected patient coughs or sneezes. The virus is also transmitted when someone touches an object with the virus on it. The first thing that we must strictly observe is a physical distancing. In a public and private vehicle, driver must wear the proper safety equipment like face mask, face shield, gloves, and other necessary things.
Before we move on to the next point, may I suggest something? Regarding that matter, I would like to suggest that we put a limit on the capacity of passengers that can board a private and public vehicle. Lessening the number will create space enough to observe physical distancing.
I think it's a good idea. Would you mind if I add some more? Since we are avoiding the transmission of the virus, passengers must wear face masks and face shield before entering public vehicles. Public vehicles must also provide alcohol for their passengers. Failing to do so may result in a halt. They must also write their name, contact number, and home address on the paper provided by the driver. A small detail but can be very crucial in the latter part.
I agree with what Mr. Lubid and Mr. Fernandez had mentioned and might also add some more. I would suggest that public vehicles should also be modified and must act not only as a transportation mode, but also as protective equipment for passengers.
Professor, may we proceed to the next point?
We studied the symptoms of COVID-19. The most common signs are dry cough, fever, and tardiness. Some people may also develop the less common symptoms such as aches and pains, sore throat, diarrhea, conjunctivitis, headache, loss of taste or smell, and rash on the skin, or even a discoloration of fingers or toes. Letting a passenger with this kind of symptoms will be a threat to everyone. The second thing that must be regularly done is a checking of passenger temperature before in entering any public vehicle.
Mr. Dita, do you have any ideas that you can share to us?
Actually, I am thinking of providing drivers a thermometer so they will be able to check their passengers. And to ensure the safety of everyone aboard, all drivers that will be resuming to their work must first undergo swab testing and must tested every week.
I don't mean to be rude, but don't you think it would be too costly for the side of the drivers?
Well, provided to the drivers, including the thermometer, the gloves, and the swab test.
So far, we are able to make the standards for a passenger and a driver. Now let us move on to our next point.
Before we move on to the next point, I have noticed on the news that frontliners are finding it difficult to attend to their matter because of unsafe transportation. They become the most valuable resource that must be protected and given attention. In our current situation, we are not yet able to provide service to these people. A solution must be provided to address this problem.
Do you mind if I jump in here? I would suggest to have a time frame for traveling. This will not only be limited to the frontliners, but will also be a great aid to the commuters. Since our goal is to avoid the transmission of the virus, Providing a time frame will help keep the transportation going and manage the safety of the people. I think that making a time frame between commuters will open up an uncrowded public vehicle.
Would you mind explaining it a little more, Mr. Fernandez?
I would be glad to. At this time of the pandemic, we can expect that most of the commuters will only be those who are frontliners and those people who are still working amidst the crisis. Instead of allowing these commuters to commute at any time, a series of time will be allocated where they can only travel. The time allotted for frontliners will be 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I like the idea of the time given to frontliners. Based on our previous data, it shows that the busiest road time is around 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Avoiding such rush hours will keep the road uncrowded and less disturbing to hustling frontliners.
In addition to that, the pandemic itself somehow decreased the number of the vehicles traveling and opens up the traffic-free roads.
Okay. In continuation, other workers will have their transit at 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And locals will have their turn at 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Shipment of goods and other necessities will only be allowed at 11 p.m. up to 3 a.m. The 30 minutes gap in the time frame is for the disinfection of the public vehicles.
I am sorry to interrupt you, but would this time frame of yours affect the schedule of other workers?
It will somehow affect their schedule, but it's up to the business owners and other companies if they would adjust their work time for the safety of everyone. The time frame will not only be beneficial to the whole workforce, but also to the economy. It keeps the people moving from one place to another in a safe manner.
Do you plan on opening the road only to the public transportation vehicles and commuters?
Well, the provided time frame is only applicable to public vehicles and those who are commuting. People who have private transit can share the road at any time. However, social distancing, wearing face masks, and other rules must still be strictly observed.
I like the idea.
That's a great idea. The tendency of people being near to each other, even while traveling, in be minimized. At the same time, the number of commuters can be controlled over a certain hour.
May I have all of your attention for the second time? Every one of you have presented the wonderful ideas, but I think Professor still has something to say. Am I right, Professor?
That's right, Mr. President. Local that has age of 60 and above, 21 and below are not allowed to travel from one place to another because they are prone to COVID-19. The virus can easily infect someone who has weak immune system. That's why these people are banned to travel. The third thing that must be considered is the age of passenger.
How about using the travel pass as a ticket to travel? Travel pass can only be available by those who are within the standards implemented by the government. These rules also include the age restriction. Using such a method will prevent stubborn people who are restricted to go out and wish to travel in the middle of the crisis.
Totally agree to that.
It seems that all of us are aware of what is going on and have offered the solution to address such problems. It is now time we finalize the ideas to meet our goal for this day. But first, we shall ask Professor Clarence if all of the restrictions are obeyed during the discussion of the plan.
The board members have acknowledged every boundaries that this pandemic had offered to us and have provided as an exceptional solution that are possible and applicable to the ongoing situation.
To sum it all up, all of the discussion, before any public vehicle return to its route, it must first pass all the requirements and health protocols. Drivers must first proceed to the nearest LTO office to pick up protective equipment and undergo swab testing. After doing so, they must attend a seminar to discuss the time frame and all of the rules. Passengers must have a travel pass and must wear face masks and face shield before they can enter a public vehicle. The transportation of a specific place will immediately shut down if there will be a positive case in the area. I think that this meeting has come to its end and is able to supply us the plans to resume our operation. I would like to thank and congratulate everyone inside this meeting for participating in restoring our halted operation. Let us also thank Professor Clarence for joining us here today and lending us his knowledge. Do anyone still have something to say? I guess there is nothing more. This meeting is now over.